Hey everyone, Dr. Sean here. Hey, I'm just back from a run. I needed to go for a run to clear some stuff out of my head. And while I was running, I was thinking that I want to talk to you about the three leading stress triggers and how to diffuse them. So I talk a lot about exercise as a way to diffuse stress, right? Exercise is great for lowering cortisol. It's great for increasing dopamine. It's great if you do it with other people. It's great for increasing oxytocin, which is sometimes called the human connection hormone. Exercise does so many things to help us with our stress levels and diffuse our stress. It's really sort of an evolutionary built-in thing to get us out of that sort of sympathetic drive, right, that I talk about sometimes. So the three leading stress triggers in most people's lives are uncertainty, right? Uncertainty about the future for various reasons. Sleep deprivation, right? When we don't sleep enough, it sets us into a fight or flight response in a sort of chronic low-grade way. And the third thing is, and we know this from survey after survey after survey, is finances, right? People are stressed out about their job and their work and their economy and making ends meet and all that kind of stuff. So I want to talk about each one of those, right? So obviously running, right? I just went for a trail run, doesn't make my life more certain or secure. It doesn't, well, hopefully it'll make me sleep better tonight, right? Because I got a good workout. And it doesn't make me any more money. I'm not like a professional runner, right? So it's not going to help me there, but it can sort of diffuse those sorts of things. So I want to talk about each one of these in turn. So let's talk about uncertainty first. So uncertainty is something that is a primal sort of fear for humans, right? Our brain is basically a prediction machine, right? We take in information from around us. Our brain makes predictions about the future and hopefully can figure out what's going to happen. When we're uncertain about something, we are in a low grade stress response. We're uncertain about what's in the bush. We're uncertain about what's behind the rock or what's over the ridge or what's around the corner, right? And from an evolutionary perspective, that makes perfect sense, right? We want to be uncertain, or if we're uncertain, we want to have heightened awareness, right? We want to be in that fight or flight response because if there's a saber-toothed tiger around the corner, we want to be able to, get away or fight it off, or, you get the idea, right? So uncertainty holds a certain advantage, a benefit for us, right? Except for when you're uncertain about, what's going to happen with your career, or what's going to happen with your health, or what's going to happen with, your promotion or your layoff, or, all that kind of stuff is tough, right? And how do we become more certain, right? Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you just have to accept that there's going to be uncertainty and kind of embrace it. One of the philosophical ways that I like to think of it, and I'll use a very personal example. My company that I helped start 7 or so years ago, about 6 months ago, was purchased, right? So we have a new owner. And we're all trying to get used to it. I actually wrote about this on my blog. I wrote about the ABCs of mental well-being, and I talked about uncertainty and getting comfortable with being uncertain. And so sometimes you have to do that. So myself and a lot of my colleagues are kind of uncertain about we're uncertain about our positions in the company. We're uncertain about how it's going to develop. Our office is going to be moved? Are we going to be asked to take on new responsibilities or give up certain responsibilities? This causes a lot of stress. And when you're stressed out, it leads to unhappiness and problems with mental wellness and all those sorts of things. So from the perspective of you can't always make that uncertainty certain. Sometimes you just have to accept it and deal with it. So I actually carry this. I don't know if you can see this. I'll see if I can hold it up to the camera. This is a little coin that I carry. It says Amor Fati. And on the back, I won't hold it up to the camera, but I'll read it to you. It says, not merely to bear what is necessary, but love it. And I carry this in my pocket a lot of the time, especially lately, so the philosophy here, and I get, if you're interested in getting one of these, I don't have any skin in the game name here, but this comes from Ryan Holiday's company, Daily Stoic. I talk about Ryan Holiday's books all the time. I recommend them. I talk about them in the course that I teach about certified mental wellness coaching, about Stoicism. Right? This is part of Stoic philosophy, which is basically not merely to bear what is necessary, but love it. To say, hey, I'm in this situation. It might be uncertain, but I'm not just going to deal with it. I'm not just going to grin and bear it. I am going to make the best of this situation. I'm going to have the philosophy of, this is the best situation for me right now. Because you don't know, let's embrace this uncertainty. You don't know what the future may bring, so you might as well make the best of it right now. And you might look back on it in a year or 5 years or 10 years and say, wow, that uncertain period where I was really stressed out, I'm glad that I stepped into it instead of stepping away, because it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Okay, so that's one way to sort of diffuse a little bit of that stress, is just sort of flow with it. And that's I use a Stoic example, but there's an example of that in almost every culture around the world. It's an idea in a lot of religions, that you leave it to God. Right, and God has a plan for this, and you're gonna go with it. Right, it's a very similar mentality. In more sort of secular, sort of quasi, secular or religious, like Taoism or Taoism, sort of going with the flow, like not going against the current of nature, but trying to use the flow and use that to your advantage. There's all kinds of ways to describe this same aspect of philosophy. And once you accept that, it's not saying that you don't care about the situation. It's not that at all. You can care deeply, and you can be really passionate about what you're doing, as I am with the kinds of things that I talk about. But you don't have to be so, set that it has to go this way or not. You can, there's a lot of ways you can have a positive outcome. Okay, so embrace that uncertainty, and that will diffuse the stress. Sleep deprivation, I'm not going to go off on a whole thing about sleep quality and things like that, but we know that if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not getting your 7 to 8 to 9 hours, or at least having good sleep quality, that is going to cause a problem, right? That lack of sleep is a low-grade stress on your body and mind, and you're going to be, if I don't sleep well tonight, I'm going to be in a stress response, sympathetic drive situation tomorrow, and that's going to make me more stressed out. I'm more likely to be in fight or flight. I'm more likely to be in that sympathetic drive, and that's going to make me more irritable. It's going to make me less empathetic. It's going to make me less creative. It's going to make me less good at problem solving. It's going to, and we know the biochemistry of that. We know that when cortisol goes up, it's going to block your dopamine, so you're not going to be motivated. It's going to block your serotonin, so you're going to be in a sad, grouchy, irritable mood. It's going to block your oxytocin, so you're not going to be able to connect well with other people. You're going to be less empathetic. You're basically going to be a disaster, and you're not going to be aware that you're a disaster. And so this is something that is really, really important. Sleep is one of the pillars of overall mental wellness, right? You got to be physically active, you got to eat right, you got to sleep. And if you're missing any of those, you're on a shaky stool. Okay? So I'm going to leave it there. I've done umpteen deep dives about sleep. So you can go look one of those up if you want more information about that. The last one is a little different, right? So it's finances. Money is far and away, and I left it to last because it is the number one source of stress, triggers of the stress response for the majority of people. And we know this from surveys that come out every single year. American Psychological Association, the World Health Organization, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Mental Wellness America or Mental Health America, National Alliance on Mental Illness, et cetera, et cetera. Gallup, they all have surveys that come out there, annual mental wellness surveys. And the number one thing that rises to the top in every single one of those surveys is that money is a source of stress for people. Hands down, not just in America, not just in North America, not just in industrialized countries. It's a global phenomenon, right? It's finances, it's your job, it's work, it's the economy, it's making ends meet, it's making your mortgage payment, it's all that kind of stuff. And so there's a simple solution to that, right? You either need to make more, right, or spend less. It's a very simple equation, right? And one of the things that's kind of cool about where we are in time right now is that talking about finances, having these authentic conversations around money is becoming cooler, so my children are in their early 20s. Their generation is much more open about talking about how much you make and how much you spend and how much you save and what your burn rate is and all that kind of stuff. They're much more open about talking about that than my generation, and certainly more than my parents' generation, right? That was my parents' generation. You didn't talk about that kind of stuff at all. My generation a little bit more, my kids' generation a little bit more, and that's a good thing, right? Because it is such a dominant driver of mental wellness, right? Because we're always thinking about it, right? You're always thinking about making ends meet. You're always thinking about putting a roof over your head. You're always thinking about putting food on the table or making that car payment or whatever the case may be. I'm in a very lucky situation, right, where I don't worry about my mortgage payment and I don't worry about putting food on the table. And I have very first world problem concerns about money, right? So here's an example, right? Just got back from a trail run, check my emails. One of my favorite fitness companies just released a brand new treadmill, right? It's really expensive. So I would love to get it, but I look at it and I go, it's expensive. Is that really something I should be spending my money on? If it's umpteen $1,000, we just had some work done on the house, so again, very first world problem to have, but that's something that is, potentially could become worrisome. So I want to sort of frame this for you in a little less flippant way than what I just did, was to say it's an easy solution: make more or spend less, right? And simple equation. I want to frame it like this. So in Buddhism, right? And I'm not going to go all religious on people or anything like that, or too like earthy, crunchy, woo woo. But in Buddhism, there's a very central tenet, the noble truths, right, that Buddha talked about. And one of them is about suffering, that wanting what you don't have and having what you don't want is a source of craving, right? And craving is the thing that drives us to suffer. So I'm actually going to read something to you, right? Because I think it's important to sort of frame this. So the second noble truth of Buddhism is that all suffering is caused by craving. When we crave something but are unable to get it, we feel frustrated. When we expect someone to live up to our expectations and they do not, we feel let down and disappointed. When we want others to like us and they don't, we feel hurt. Even when we want something and are able to get it, it often does not lead to happiness because we either lose interest in it or we begin to fear that something will happen that will cause us to lose it. Stated simply, the second noble truth, and there's many noble truths, teaches that suffering results from wanting what you don't have and having what you don't want. This wanting and worrying deprives us of contentment and happiness, right? It leads us to have poor mental wellness. It leads us to be stressed, right? That's the way that we would say it if we weren't trying to say it in the words of the Buddha. So there's that. We can also frame it in the perspective of more secular philosophy, if you will. So I gave you this idea about the Stoics, right? In my course that I teach on becoming a certified mental wellness coach. Right? I teach that course at Marietta College. I'm on the faculty of the sports medicine department. I got my sports medicine degree at Marietta College. That's one of the reasons that we do the course there. And we teach people to help their clients navigate situations like this. So one of the modules in that certified mental wellness course talks a lot about Stoic philosophy. And my most recent book, Mental Fitness, talks a lot about Stoic philosophy. In that tradition, we can look at what Socrates talked about. And let me say this. You're not Buddha and I'm not Socrates, right? I'm not trying to say that we need to live up to those sorts of ideals, but we can certainly learn from their wisdom. So what Socrates said, 2,000 years ago, was this: if you don't get what you want, you suffer. If you get what you don't want, you suffer. Even when you get exactly what you want, you still suffer because you can't hold on to it forever. Your mind is your predicament. It wants you to be free of change, free of pain, free of the obligations of life and death. But change is law, and no amount of pretending will alter that reality. So again, whether you want to subscribe to Buddha, you want to subscribe to Socrates, you want to subscribe to Dr. Sean, who talks in biochemical terms, it really is like, embrace this uncertainty, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, get your sleep, and figure out how to get your finances in order, right? So in the Certified Mental Wellness Coach course, one of the things that I talk to the students about is, listen, you can become a certified mental wellness coach and you can earn a living by helping other people get better, right? Feel better and perform better and, all that kind of stuff. So that's one way that they can make more money. That's a route to the finance piece of it, right? So you have to figure out how to solve that piece. Make more, spend less, figure it out, right? But those are the three things. Glad you joined me, and I hope what I said tonight was helpful for you. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.